The lock on my apartment door jiggled, the metal groaning in protest as I forced the key to turn. It was a sound I knew better than my own heartbeat. I stumbled inside, my body one giant screaming ache. The smell of stale air and baby powder hit me, and I leaned against the door, finally letting the weight of the last 18 hours crush me. My maid's uniform was stiff with sweat and cleaning chemicals. I fumbled with the buttons, my fingers numb. 18 hours, 3 houses, scrubbing floors for people who had more money in their sofa cushions than I had in my name. A soft whimper came from the corner. My heart seized, but it was just Elias, my 2-year-old son, shifting in his sleep. He was curled up with his twin sister, Eliza, in the single mattress we all shared on the floor of our tiny studio apartment. Eliza's tiny hand was fisted in his pajama shirt. They were my world. They were the only reason I was still standing. I tiptoed past them, my shoes sticking to the worn linoleum. I needed water. I needed to forget. I pulled open the refrigerator door. The weak yellow light flickered on, illuminating the white, empty shelves. Reality hit me like a physical blow. Empty. Completely empty. Not just low on groceries, empty. I mean empty. 1 half-used bottle of ketchup, a single browning apple, a carton of milk that had expired 3 days ago. My stomach twisted. The last of my cash, $48 from cleaning the Petersons' mansion, had gone to the overdue electric bill. I'd paid it 2 hours ago, just before the office closed, my hands shaking. The twins would wake up in a few hours. They would be hungry. And I had nothing, absolutely nothing to give them. I slid down the cold metal of the refrigerator until I was sitting on the floor. The tears I'd been swallowing all day, when Mrs. Gable complained about a streak on her wine glass, when Dr. Martin's son tracked mud all over the floor I had just mopped, finally broke free. Silent, hot, angry tears. 6 months. 6 months since Donovan had walked out. He'd packed his designer suits, his $1,000 shoes, and left me with 2 toddlers and a mountain of debt I never even knew we had. "I need to find myself, Iris," he'd said, zipping his leather bag while Eliza and Elias cried in their cribs. "This isn't the life I signed up for. You're strong. You'll figure it out." Figure it out. As if raising 2 children alone while working myself to the bone was just some little puzzle. I was drowning, and he'd been the one to hold my head under the water. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. My cracked phone screen lit up. 3:15 a.m. Who could I possibly call? My sister Rebecca had given me $50 last month with a sigh so heavy it felt like a lecture. "Iris, you have to get your life together," she'd said. "I can't be your emergency fund forever." My mother was living on Social Security, barely making her own ends meet. My friends? They'd vanished one by one as my life became less brunch dates and more desperate poverty. Elias whimpered again, a high-pitched sound that meant his dreams were bad. I crawled over and gently rubbed his back until his breathing evened out. He'd been coughing for a week, a nasty hacking cough, and I couldn't even afford the copay for the pediatrician. What kind of mother was I? I couldn't feed them. I couldn't get the medicine. The guilt was a physical weight, pressing down on my chest until I couldn't breathe. I had to try. Pride was a luxury I couldn't afford. My fingers, shaking with exhaustion and shame, opened a new text message. I pulled up Rebecca's contact. "Becca, I know it's late. I'm so sorry to ask, but I have nothing for the kids for breakfast. Literally nothing. I don't get paid until next Friday. Could you please just send me $40 for groceries? I'll pay you back, I swear. I'm desperate." I stared at the words, my vision blurring. My humiliation was complete. I was begging. I hit send. My thumb hovered over the screen, my heart pounding, waiting for the read receipt that would be followed by either silence or a lecture. A reply came back almost instantly. My heart leaped. Maybe she wasn't asleep. Maybe she understood. But the message wasn't what I expected. Iris, I had no idea things were this dire. Of course, I will help, but I believe we need to discuss a more permanent solution to your situation. Can you come to my office tomorrow morning? 9 a.m. I blinked, confused. This wasn't how Rebecca texted. Dire? Permanent solution? My office. She worked as a dental hygienist. And please, a new message pinged. Do not hesitate to reach out. This is a problem we can solve. My blood ran cold. I scrolled to the top of the message thread. The contact name wasn't Rebecca. It was Hudson Blackwood. I'd sent my desperate, humiliating plea to my boss, the millionaire owner of Blackwood Industries, whose palatial mansion I cleaned twice a week. The man who I'd only ever spoken to twice, and both times it was, yes, Mr. Blackwood, and no, Mr. Blackwood. Panic, cold and sharp, flooded my veins. I jumped to my feet, my phone clattering to the floor. No, 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 I whispered, snatching it back up. I just admitted to my terrifyingly wealthy, intensely private employer that I was broke, that I was begging for money, that my life was a complete and total disaster. He would fire me. Of course he would fire me. Who wants a maid who is so unstable she can't even text the right person? Who wants their personal problems infesting their home? I was done. I was finished. I just lost the one job that was barely keeping a roof over our heads. My fingers flew across the screen, clumsy and shaking. Mr. Blackwood, I am profoundly sorry. That message was not intended for you. It was a terrible mistake. Please, please ignore it. I will see you on Thursday for my regular cleaning. My deepest apologies. I hit send and squeezed my eyes shut, bracing myself. The reply was immediate. Iris, there is nothing to apologize for. The offer still stands. My office, 9 a.m. tomorrow. I'll text you the address for the downtown building. We will figure this out. I stared at that last line. We will figure this out. What did that mean? Harrison Blackwood was a ghost in his own home. A tall, imposing man who was always on conference calls in his glass-walled office, his voice sharp and decisive. He never looked at me. He looked through me, the same way he looked at his expensive furniture. But the text, it wasn't cold. It was kind. I looked back at Eliza and Elias, sleeping in a tangle of limbs, oblivious to the fact that our world was either about to end or about to change forever. I hadn't slept in what felt like a year. I sat on the edge of the mattress, my phone in my hand, and watched the gray light of dawn creep through the cracks in our blinds. I had $7.63 to my name. I had no food. I had no options. I was going to that meeting. When you're at the bottom of a well, you don't argue with the person lowering a rope. You just grab on. The next morning, I used my last $7 to pay for 2 hours at the church daycare. The woman at the counter, Mrs. Davis, gave me a sympathetic look. Just 2 hours, honey. I have an appointment, I said, trying to sound professional. My voice cracked. The address Hudson Blackwood sent me was for a skyscraper of glass and steel that scraped the clouds. I walked into the lobby and my Goodwill dress and scuffed flats felt like a costume. The receptionist looked at my name on her list and her eyes widened slightly. Mr. Blackwood is expecting you. 30th floor. The elevator ride was silent and fast. My ears popped. The doors opened onto a hushed, plush, carpeted world. A woman at a massive wooden desk smiled warmly. Iris, he's ready for you. I pushed open the heavy door to his office. It was enormous, with a wall of glass overlooking the entire city. But unlike his sterile mansion, this room felt human. Bookshelves were overflowing. Framed photos covered his desk. Hudson Blackwood stood up from behind his desk. He wasn't wearing the severe suit I was used to. He was in slacks and a button-down shirt, his sleeves rolled up. Iris, thank you for coming, he said. His voice was deeper, quieter than I expected. Please sit. Coffee? Water? No, thank you, sir. I whispered, perching on the edge of a leather chair that probably cost more than my car used to. I clutched my worn-out purse in my lap. He didn't sit behind his desk. He sat in the chair opposite me, creating a space that felt less like an interrogation. He leaned forward, his hands clasped. "I imagine you're wondering why you're here," he said. I swallowed. "Mr. Blackwood, about last night. I can't tell you how sorry I am. It was unprofessional, and I completely understand if you want to find someone else to clean your home. Iris," he said, holding up a hand. His voice was gentle but firm, cutting off my panicked rambling. "I didn't ask you here to fire you. I asked you here because I should have stepped in months ago." I stared at him. "Sir? I don't understand." "Your husband," he said, his gaze steady. "Donovan. How much do you know about his employment history?" The question was so far from what I expected, it felt like a slap. "Donovan, he was in sales. He worked for a few different companies. Why?" "Specifically," Hudson said, his eyes narrowing slightly. "What did he tell you about his last job? The one he had before he left?" A knot of ice formed in my stomach. "He said the company was downsizing. He was laid off about 8 months ago. That's when things got so tight." Hudson was silent for a long moment. He reached into a drawer in his desk and pulled out a single file. He slid it onto the coffee table between us. "Iris, Donovan worked for me. He worked here at Blackwood Industries, and he wasn't laid off." The room seemed to tilt. The sounds of the city outside the window faded to a dull roar. "What?" "He was an assistant manager in our logistics division," Hudson said, his voice even. "He worked for me for nearly 2 years." That's not possible," I stammered. "He never mentioned you. He never said he worked at Blackwood." "He would have told me." "Would he?" Hudson asked. It wasn't an accusation, just a question. "Did he tell you about the performance warnings, the missed deadlines, the client accounts he was letting fall through the cracks?" He opened the file. It was a performance review, dated 9 months ago. I could see the red ink and the failing scores even from where I sat. "He was on final probation," Hudson said. "I gave him every chance to fix it. He seemed distracted, unfocused." "He was stressed," I said, a desperate need to defend the man I thought I knew rising up. "We had the twins. Money was tight." "When exactly did he stop working for you?" I asked, dreading the answer. Hudson met my gaze. "He was terminated for cause, specifically for attendance violations, 3 weeks before he walked out on you." The breath left my lungs. 3 weeks. But he left for work every morning. He put on his suit. He took his briefcase. Where was he? Where was he going? "That," Hudson said, "is what I was hoping you could tell me." He leaned forward again. "Iris, I need to ask you something, and I need you to think very carefully. In those last few months, did Donovan ever ask you to sign any papers, banking documents, anything related to your house?" My mouth went dry. How did you know that? What did you sign, Iris?" "I don't know," I cried, the frustration and fear bubbling over. He said it was just routine, insurance forms for the twins, something about refinancing the mortgage to get a better rate. I was so tired. The babies weren't sleeping. He was so stressed. I signed. I signed whatever he put in front of me." Hudson Blackwood closed his eyes for a second, and a look of profound, weary sadness crossed his face. He looked older than I'd ever seen him. "Iris," he said, opening his eyes, "I think you need to check your accounts. Immediately. And your mortgage. I think Donovan's stress wasn't just about his job." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," he said, his voice hard, "that I think your husband has been planning his exit for a very long time. And I think when he left, he took a lot more than just his suitcases." Hudson didn't just send me to the bank. He took me. He made a call, and by the time we walked into the downtown branch of my bank, the manager, Mrs. Price, was waiting for us in her glass-walled office. "Mrs. Morrison, Mr. Blackwood," she said, her expression grim. She didn't offer us coffee. She just motioned for us to sit. "I'm afraid there has been significant activity on your accounts," Mrs. Price said, turning her monitor toward me. The numbers were a blur. I squinted, trying to make them make sense. "Your joint checking account," she said, pointing, "was closed 6 weeks ago. The savings account, that was emptied and closed 8 weeks ago. And your joint credit cards, they've all been maxed out." "What?" I whispered. "Closed? No, I just used the debit card." "The card was likely deactivated when the account was drained, Mrs. Morrison. The balance is 0. "How much?" Hudson asked, his voice low. Mrs. Price typed for a moment. "From savings, a single cash withdrawal of $12,800. From checking, $2,300. The 2 credit cards have a combined balance of $15,237. He also took cash advances against both of them." My head was spinning. $30,000. Over $30,000. "But I never gave him permission," I said, my voice sounding small and stupid even to my own ears. "You can't just take that much." "He didn't need your permission," Mrs. Price said, her voice softening with pity. She pulled out a file. "He had full power of attorney." She slid a document across the desk. "You signed this 14 months ago." I looked at the paper. My signature. My sloppy, exhausted signature. And then I remembered. The hospital. 2 days after my C-section. Eliza was in the NICU. I was hooked up to an IV, and Donovan had bustled in with a stack of papers. "It's just the insurance forms, honey," he'd said, tapping the last page. "Adding the babies. Sign here and here." "I signed this in the hospital," I whispered, touching the paper. "I thought it was for the twins' insurance." "It gave him full legal control of all your joint assets, Iris," Hudson said, his jaw tight. "What about the house?" I asked, a new, terrible dread creeping in. Mrs. Price looked like she was going to be sick. "I was hoping you wouldn't ask about that. Your mortgage was refinanced 6 months ago. A home equity loan was taken out for $45,000. $45,000. The room was spinning. Where did it go? Where did all of it go? "I can't trace it beyond the initial withdrawal," Mrs. Price said. "It was all moved to an account I don't have access to." "Iris," Hudson said, standing up. "We need to go to your apartment. Now. Do you know where the deed to your house is?" The drive was a blur. Hudson followed me in his own black sedan while I drove my rattling 10-year-old car, my hands gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles were white. Donovan hadn't just left me. He hadn't just been laid off. He had systematically, meticulously, and cruelly stolen every single penny we had. He had destroyed my credit. He had bled our family dry and then vanished. My apartment, which had always felt small, now felt suffocating and pathetic as Hudson Blackwood stood in the middle of it. He was too large, too clean, too wealthy for this space. "The filing cabinet," I said, my voice hoarse. I pulled open the rickety metal drawer and dug through folders. Insurance, taxes, twins, birth certificates. Here. I pulled out the folder labeled House. The moment I touched the deed, I knew. The paper felt different, newer, thicker. I unfolded it. "Hudson," I said, my voice cracking. My name isn't on this. It's just his." He took the document from my shaking hands. He read it, his expression turning to stone. "This is a quitclaim deed, Iris. It transfers 100% of the ownership to him. It says you signed it 6 months ago." I sank onto my second-hand couch. "The refinancing. He told me we were refinancing to lower our payments. He came home with a stack of papers, said the notary was waiting in the car, that we had to hurry." "He hid this inside that stack," Hudson said. "It wasn't a question. He tricked you into signing away your own home. So, what does that mean? It means, Hudson said, pulling out his phone, that the house is legally his. He could sell it, mortgage it, do whatever he wanted, and you would never even know. He started dialing. I'm calling my attorney. His name is Daniel Chung. We need to check the county property records. Immediately. While Hudson spoke in low, urgent tones, I sat there, surrounded by the remnants of my life. The cheap furniture Donovan had complained about, the framed photo of our wedding day on the wall. The man in that photo was smiling, his arm around my waist. He was a stranger, a monster. Hudson hung up the phone. He looked at me and his face was a mask of cold fury. My attorney is checking. It'll be a few minutes, he said. He sat down in the apartment's only other chair, a wobbly wooden one from the kitchen. It looked like it might break under his weight. Iris, he said, this isn't just a man who fell out of love. This is a predator. What he has done. This is a level of calculation I've rarely seen. But why? I whispered. Why do all this? Why not just leave? Because leaving isn't enough for men like him, Hudson said. He wanted to leave, and he wanted to make sure he was comfortable. He wanted to punish you for whatever perceived failure he invented in his own head, for trapping him, for having children, for not being rich enough. The phone buzzed. Hudson snatched it up. Daniel. Yes. I see. Yes, I'm with her now. Thank you. He hung up. He didn't look at me for a long second. He just stared at the wall, at that smiling wedding photo. Hudson? What is it? He finally met my gaze. The house was sold, Iris, 4 weeks ago. Sold for $87,000, cash sale, to a property investment LLC. I couldn't process the words, but I'm still paying the mortgage. The bill comes here. He must have kept paying it or had it on auto pay so you wouldn't suspect. But the sale is final. The new owners filed the paperwork last month. So, where are we supposed to live? Iris, Hudson said, his voice terribly gentle. Legally, you and the twins are homeless. You have been for a month. The full, horrifying scope of Donovan's cruelty crashed down on me. He hadn't just stolen our money. He'd sold the roof over our heads. He'd left his children without a home and hadn't even had the decency to tell us. We were squatters in our own lives. The sale price, Hudson continued, his voice pulling me back from the brink of hysteria, $87,000. Daniel says the market value for your house was at least $120,000. He sold it cheap. To get the cash fast, I whispered. Or, Hudson said, because he was in a hurry, because someone was forcing his hand. This feels desperate. He's liquidating everything as fast as possible. He looked at me, his eyes full of a strange, dark understanding. Iris, I need to be honest with you. There's more to this, more than I told you. What could be worse than this? The reason Donovan was fired, Hudson said, wasn't just for poor attendance. That was the official reason. The real reason is that he was stealing from my company. My stomach, already in knots, clenched violently. Stealing? Small amounts at first, padding expense reports, ordering supplies that never made it to the office. But in his last 2 months, he started embezzling. He was redirecting client payments into a personal account. How much? Enough, Hudson said grimly. Enough that I should have pressed charges. Enough that he could be in prison right now. But you didn't, I said. Why? Because I knew he had 2 small children at home, Hudson said. I didn't want to destroy your family over his mistakes. I confronted him. I told him he was fired and that I would file a report if he didn't pay it back in 30 days. Instead, he vanished. And it seems he took your money with him to cover his tracks. He stood up and walked to my tiny, grim-streaked window. I've been where you are, Iris. Not financially, but emotionally. I know what it feels like to have the person you trust most in the world turn out to be a complete stranger, to realize the life you were building was a lie. Your wife? I asked. My ex-wife, he said, his back still to me. She cleaned out our joint accounts and disappeared with her yoga instructor, left me a note on the kitchen counter. Hudson, I'm so sorry. The point is, he said, turning back, I had resources. I had lawyers and investigators and accountants. I could fight back. You've been left with nothing. He's counting on you being too broken and too poor to do anything about it. He took a deep breath. Which is why you're not going to. I am. What do you mean? I'm not offering you charity, Iris. I'm offering you a job, a real one. I own several apartment buildings, small residential properties. They need a manager, someone to handle leasing, coordinate maintenance, chase down rent, someone honest and detail-oriented and reliable. Someone I know understands the value of hard work. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a lifeline, he said. The position comes with a salary, a real one, and it comes with a place to live. There's a guest house on my property. It's small, but it's safe. It's yours, for as long as you need it. I stared at him, unable to speak. 24 hours ago, this man was a phantom I was terrified of. Now, he was the only thing standing between me and a homeless shelter. I don't know what to say. Say yes, he said. Say you'll let me help you. Let my lawyer, Daniel, start digging. Let's find out where Donovan went, and let's find out how to get back what he stole from you and your children. I looked at the sleeping forms of Eliza and Elias, their faces peaceful. They deserved so much better than this. They deserved a mother who could protect them. Yes, I said, my voice firm for the first time in months. Okay, yes. Good, Hudson said. He pulled out his phone. I'll have movers here in an hour. Go pack. Your new life starts today. Moving into the guest house was surreal. It was a beautiful 2-bedroom cottage set behind Hudson's main house, surrounded by trees. It was cleaner, safer, and more peaceful than any place I had ever lived. The twins were ecstatic. They had their own room for the first time ever and a backyard to play in. Hudson was true to his word. The next day, I started my new job. He set me up in a small, clean office in his home and began walking me through the property management software. He was a patient teacher, a side of him I never could have imagined. He was respectful. He listened to my questions. For the first time in my life, I felt competent. I was good at this. I was organized. I was firm with contractors and friendly with tenants. Within a week, I'd already sorted out a billing issue that had been plaguing one of the buildings for months. You're a natural at this, Iris, Hudson said, reviewing the report I'd prepared. I just like things to be in order, I replied, a small smile touching my lips. So do I, he said. He closed the laptop. Which brings us to Donovan. Daniel has been digging. My good mood evaporated. What did he find? He found the accounts, Hudson said. The $45,000 from the house, the $12,800 from your savings, the $15,000 in credit card advances. It was all funneled into a single holding account. And from there, he hesitated. From where, Hudson? It was wired to an offshore account in Cyprus. Cyprus? I said, the name sounding foreign and bizarre. Like the island? He's not just hiding, Iris. He's living, and he's been covering his tracks. Daniel is having trouble getting the Cypriot bank to cooperate. It's a dead end for now. A cold fury settled over me. So he's on a beach, while his children... For now, Hudson said, his voice hard, but he made a mistake. He got sloppy. Before he wired the money, he made one last transfer from that holding account. What was it? A $10,000 payment to a man named Silas Croft, a local consultant. Daniel ran a background check. Croft is a loan shark, a very dangerous one. A loan shark? I said, my blood running cold. Donovan was in debt to a loan shark? It appears so, Hudson said. This changes things. This isn't just a man who ran. This is a man who was running from something. A new sickening thought occurred to me. Hudson, what if he wasn't just stealing for himself? What if this Silas Croft was forcing him? Hudson considered this. It's possible. It would explain the desperation, the speed, the sloppiness of the embezzlement. He wasn't just building a nest egg, he was paying a debt. This new information didn't make me feel better. It made me feel worse. It made me feel terrified. We need to find out what he was into, I said, my voice shaking. We need to know if this Croft is still a threat to me, to the twins. Hudson nodded, his face grim. I agree. Daniel is trying to find a location for this Croft, but he's a ghost. No official address, no registered business. I might know where to look, I said, a dark memory surfacing. Donovan had an office, a storage unit. He told me it was for his sales materials. He was so secretive about it. He paid for it in cash every month. Where is it? Public storage on the south side, Unit 14B. Let's go, Hudson said, grabbing his keys. Now. The drive to the south side was tense. This was a part of town I rarely visited, all warehouses and chain-link fences. The storage facility was a long, bleak row of faded blue metal doors. I still have the key, I said, my hand trembling as I dug it out of my purse. He forgot I had a copy. Hudson put his hand on my arm. Stay here, let me. No, I said, pulling away. I need to see. I need to know. I slid the key into the heavy padlock. It was stiff, but it turned. Hudson rolled up the corrugated metal door with a loud thud. The unit was small, maybe 10 by 10. It wasn't full of sales materials. It was an office, a cheap metal desk, a filing cabinet, a corkboard on the wall, and a smell, a coppery metallic smell that made my stomach turn. What is that? I whispered. Hudson stepped in front of me, his body shielding mine. Iris, don't look. But it was too late. I saw it. On the floor next to an overturned chair was a dark, reddish-brown stain, a very, very large stain, and next to it, a single empty shell casing. My God, I whispered, stumbling back. Someone was shot here. Hudson grabbed my arm, pulling me out. He slammed the door shut. We're leaving. We're calling the police. Now, Iris, move. He bundled me into his car and dialed 911. I need to report. A possible crime scene. Public storage. 14B. Yes, it looks like blood. A lot of it. I sat in the passenger seat, shaking so hard my teeth chattered. Donovan hadn't just been in debt. He'd been involved in this violence, this darkness. The police arrived in minutes, followed by detectives. We sat in Hudson's car for 2 hours, giving our statements. This changes everything, I said to Hudson, my voice hollow. This isn't about money anymore. I know, he said, his face pale. This man, Silas Croft, he's not just a loan shark, he's a monster, and Donovan was tied up with him. A detective, a woman with a tired, kind face, knocked on our window. Mrs. Morrison, Mr. Blackwood, you're free to go. We'll be in touch. Did you find anything? I asked. We found evidence of a significant altercation, she said evasively, but the unit was mostly empty. Whoever was here, they cleaned up, mostly. As we drove away, a new, terrible thought took root in my mind. Hudson, I said, you saw that unit. There was a desk, a filing cabinet. What if Donovan left something? A clue? About Croft? About the money? Iris, the police just searched it. They were looking for evidence of a shooting, I said, my mind racing. They weren't looking for financial records. They weren't looking for a ledger. Newark 1, the false lead. We had to wait 2 days for the police to release the scene. 2 days of me pacing the guest house, my mind replaying the image of that dark stain on the concrete. Hudson had hired a private security guard to sit in a car at the end of his driveway, a precaution that made me feel both safe and terrified. "They're done," Hudson said, walking into the guest house. He was holding a set of keys. "The police released the unit. They took the filing cabinet and the desk, but they left a box. They said it was just personal effects. It's in my car." "Bring it in," I said, my heart pounding. He set a dusty cardboard box on the small kitchen table. It was full of junk. Old pens, a broken stapler, a stack of greasy takeout menus. "Nothing," I said, my shoulders slumping. "Wait," Hudson said. He reached into the bottom and pulled out a laptop, an old, cheap one. "This wasn't here before. The police must have missed it. It was tucked under a pile of rags. Can you turn it on?" Hudson retrieved a universal power cord from his office. The laptop whirred to life. It was password protected. "Damn it," I said. "I don't know his password." "Try the twins' birthdays," Hudson suggested. I typed in Eliza and Elias's birthday, 0814, access denied. "Try his birthday," Hudson said. "Access denied." What about the day he found himself?" I said, bitterness lacing my voice. "The day he left." I typed in the date. Access denied. "Wait," I said. He was always obsessed with making it. His number. The salary he always wanted. 100 grand. I typed 100,000. Access granted. I almost laughed. Of course. The desktop was empty. Just a trash bin icon. "He wiped it," I said, defeated. "Not necessarily," Hudson said. He opened the email program. It was logged in. An old generic email account I didn't recognize. And there was one email in the drafts folder, never sent. It wasn't a message. It was just a string of text, an address. 1412 Dockside Street, Pier 9. Ask for the Crow. "What is that?" I whispered. 1412 Dockside, Hudson said, pulling out his phone. That's the old shipyard. It's abandoned." "Silas Croft," I breathed. "It has to be. Donovan, he must have left this for himself, a place to meet. The Crow, that must be Croft's nickname." "This is it," Hudson said, his eyes bright with a dangerous energy. "This is our lead. If we can find this Crow, we can find out what happened to Donovan. We can find out where the rest of the money is." Are we going to the police?" I asked. Hudson hesitated. "And tell them what? We found a cryptic note on a dead man's laptop? They're working a homicide, Iris. They're not working a financial recovery case. This we do ourselves, quietly." He made a call. "I know a guy," he said, hanging up. "Ex-cop, does private security and information gathering. He'll meet us there. He'll know how to handle this." New Arc 1, The Wild Goose Chase. The next night, we drove to the shipyard. Hudson's guy, a man named Marcus with a broken nose and the quietest eyes I'd ever seen, met us in a separate car. "This is a bad place, Mr. Blackwood," Marcus said, his voice a low rumble. "You and the lady stay in the car. I'll go see who's home." "We're coming with you," I said, surprising myself. "I need to see." Hudson looked at me, then at Marcus. "We stay behind you, but we're coming." Marcus sighed but nodded. He pulled a heavy flashlight from his jacket. The shipyard was a graveyard of rusting metal and crumbling concrete. Pier 9 was a collapsed wooden structure, groaning under the lapping water. The address, 1412, was a massive, derelict warehouse. The doors were chained. "Nobody's here," Marcus said. "Wait," I said, pointing. "Look." A dim yellow light glowed from a single window on the second floor. Marcus pulled a pair of bolt cutters from his trunk. "Stay here," he ordered. This time it wasn't a suggestion. He snapped the chain and slipped inside the darkness. We waited in the car, the silence so thick I could barely breathe. Every creak of the old metal made me jump. "This is insane," I whispered. "We're chasing a ghost." "We're chasing justice, Iris," Hudson said, but he looked nervous too. 20 minutes later, Marcus reappeared. His face was blank. "Well?" Hudson asked. "Place is a flophouse," Marcus said, disgust in his voice. "Vagrants. There's a dozen of them up there, huddled around a trash can fire. I asked about the crow. They just laughed. Said the crow is what they call the old man who brings them scraps from the restaurant dumpsters." I slumped in my seat. A homeless man." "It's a dead end, Mr. Blackwood," Marcus said. "A complete fabrication. Whoever left that note, they sent you on a wild goose chase." The drive back was silent. I had never felt so defeated. We'd wasted 2 days. We'd put ourselves in danger. For nothing. "He played me," I said as we pulled into Hudson's driveway. "Even from wherever he is. He played me." "He wanted us to look here," Hudson said, thinking aloud. "He wanted us to waste time, to look local. Why?" "To keep us from looking global," I said, the realization dawning. "Cyprus. He didn't want us focusing on Cyprus, the loan shark, the shooting. It was all a distraction." "He's not running from a loan shark, Iris," Hudson said, his voice cold with a new anger. "He is the loan shark. He stole from me, he stole from you, and he staged a crime scene to make us think he was a victim, to make us stop looking. The calculation, the sheer cold-blooded evil of it. He wanted us to believe he was dead." "He's not dead," I said, my voice shaking with rage. "He's in Cyprus, living on our money, and I'm going to find him." Newark 2, The Lost Advantage. "He's too smart," I said, pacing the guest house kitchen. "He's covered his tracks. The bank in Cyprus won't talk. This crow lead was a trap. We have nothing, Hudson." "We have this," Hudson said, holding up the old laptop. He wiped the desktop, but he didn't wipe the hard drive. "I'm having a data recovery specialist look at it. There might be fragments, deleted files, something." 2 days later, the specialist called. "The drive was mostly corrupted," he said over the speakerphone, "but I found one file, a deleted password-protected spreadsheet. I can't open it, but the file name, it's just a string of numbers. Looks like a bank account." "An account number," Hudson said. He was sloppy. He deleted it, but not securely. "But it's password-protected," I said, my hopes sinking. "What did we try last time?" Hudson asked. "The twins' birthday, his birthday, the day he left." "And 100,000, I said. I typed it in. "Access denied." "Think, Iris," Hudson said. "What else was he obsessed with? What number?" I thought back. Back to the late nights, the arguments about money. He had a car he always wanted, a specific one, a vintage model. He was always looking at it online. What was it? A 68. I don't remember the model, but the year. 68. I tried 1968. Access denied. "No, wait," I said. He used to say a full model number. It sounded like a code, a 911. "A Porsche 911. I typed 911. "Access denied." "What about both?" Hudson prompted. 6891. I typed it. "Access granted." The spreadsheet opened. It wasn't just a list of numbers, it was a full, detailed ledger. My stomach dropped. There were dates, amounts, and notes. Oct 14, Client Act 4B, $12,000, transfer to HI. Oct 22, Client Act 2A, $8,500, transfer to HI. No 5, Client Act 4B, $15,000, transfer to HI. "What is HI?" I asked. "Hedge Initiative," Hudson read, his face pale. "It's the name of the offshore account in Cyprus." My God, Iris, this is it. This is the embezzlement, the whole thing. He kept a personal record. There were other tabs. One was labeled Iris. It detailed every dollar he'd taken from me. The $12,800 from savings, the $45,000 from the house. Another was labeled Debts. It was empty. "No loan shark," I whispered. "No debts. It was all a lie. He just stole it." "This is it," Hudson said, his voice trembling with not fear, with victory. "This is the smoking gun. This spreadsheet. This is the entire case. This proves the wire fraud. This proves the embezzlement. This will put him away for a very long time. He saved the file to a USB drive. I'm calling Daniel. We're giving this to the district attorney. We've got him, Iris. We've got him. The relief was so profound I almost collapsed. We had proof. Real, undeniable proof. I need to get out of here, I said, feeling giddy. I need air. I'm going to go pick up the twins from daycare. I want to hug them. Go, Hudson said, smiling for the first time in days. I'll lock this in my safe until Daniel gets here. I almost skipped to my car. The world looked brighter. The air felt cleaner. I drove to the daycare, my radio blaring, and I sang along. I grabbed Eliza and Elias, burying my face in their hair, kissing their sticky cheeks. Mommy's happy, Eliza said, patting my face. Yes, baby, I said, tears in my eyes. Mommy is very, very happy. I took them for ice cream. I let them make a mess. I didn't care. We were safe. When I got back to the estate, Hudson's car was gone. I figured he'd gone to meet Daniel. I took the twins to the guest house, my heart feeling lighter than it had in a year. As I was getting them ready for their naps, I realized Eliza had left her favorite stuffed bear, Barnaby, in my car. I'll be right back, sweetie, I said. Mommy has to go get Barnaby. I walked out of the guest house and back toward the driveway, but as I rounded the corner to the main house, I stopped. The front door to Hudson's house was open, just slightly. Hudson, I called out. Are you back? Silence. The security guard. Where was the guard? I looked down the long driveway. The car was gone. Hudson, I called again, my voice trembling. A knot of pure ice formed in my stomach. I pushed the door open. The house was a wreck. Newark 2, the break-in. It wasn't a normal robbery. They hadn't taken the massive TV. They hadn't touched the expensive art on the walls or the silver candlesticks on the dining table. They had been looking for one thing: Hudson's office. It was destroyed. The books were swept from the shelves. The desk drawers were pulled out, their contents dumped on the floor, and the safe, the heavy steel safe hidden behind a painting, it was open and empty. No, I whispered. I ran to it. The USB drive was gone. The laptop, they'd taken the laptop too. Iris? I spun around. Hudson was standing in the doorway, his face ashen. He was holding a bag of groceries. I let the guard go for an hour, he said, his voice hollow as he took in the scene. Daniel was running late. I went to get steaks for dinner to celebrate. He dropped the bag. A bottle of wine shattered on the marble floor. It's gone, I said, my voice barely audible. Hudson, it's all gone. The ledger, the laptop, everything. He walked, as if in a trance, to the open safe. He knew. He must have been watching us. He knew we found it. Donovan, I breathed. He's not in Cyprus, or he has people here. He knew exactly where to look. All the air, all the hope, all the light from the last 2 hours vanished. We were back to square one. No, we were worse than square one, because now Donovan knew we were onto him. He knew we had found his secret, and he had just shown us how easily he could get to us. The twins, I whispered, panic seizing me. I turned and sprinted from the house, across the lawn, back to the guest house. I burst through the door. They were fine. They were playing on the floor, building a tower of blocks. I locked the door. I bolted it. I slid to the floor, my back against it, and I pulled my children to me, holding them so tight they grunted in protest. We had poked the bear, and now it was coming for us. Hudson came in a few minutes later, his face a grim mask. I've called the police. I've called Daniel. I'm hiring a new security team, a real one. You and the twins are not to leave this house. Do you understand? I just nodded, my face buried in Eliza's hair. We had lost. We had the smoking gun in our hands, and we had let him take it. He had outsmarted us. Again. He's going to get away with it, I whispered. No, Hudson said. His voice was quiet, but it was the most dangerous I had ever heard it. No, he's not. He took our proof. So now we're going to make him be the proof. We lived in a state of siege for the next 2 weeks. Hudson hired a security team that patrolled the grounds 24/7. I didn't leave the estate. I worked from the guest house, managing the properties, trying to maintain a sliver of normalcy for the twins. But every car that drove past, every sound in the night, made me jump. Hudson and Daniel were in constant hushed conversations. They were trying to get the DA to act, but without the ledger, it was our word against nothing. Donovan was a ghost. His Cypriot accounts were locked down. He's going to get away with it, I said to Hudson one night. We were sitting on the guest house porch, watching the security guard make his rounds. We just need one more piece, Hudson insisted. One more link. We don't have one, I said, defeated. He's too smart. He won. The next day, Hudson was in Pittsburgh for an urgent meeting, one he couldn't get out of. He'd left 2 guards at the house, but I still felt exposed. I was in the guest house trying to reconcile a tenant's rent payment when I heard it. A car I hadn't been expecting. I looked out the window. A sleek, expensive-looking rental car was pulling up the driveway. It stopped, not at the main house, but directly in front of the guest house. A man got out. He was tan, wearing expensive sunglasses and a linen suit I knew must have cost thousands. My blood turned to ice. It was Donovan. He walked up to the porch as if he owned the place, as if he hadn't abandoned his children and stolen our entire lives. He knocked on the door. "Iris," he called out, his voice smooth and confident. "I know you're in there. We need to talk." My first instinct was to call Hudson. My second was to call the police. But Eliza and Elias were napping in their room. His voice, it was so loud. I didn't want him to wake them. I didn't want him near them. Anger, pure and hot, burned through my fear. I unbolted the door and opened it, but I stood in the frame, blocking his entry. "What do you want, Donovan?" He took off his sunglasses and smiled. It was a smile I'd once loved, but now it looked like a predator's. He looked me up and down, taking in my healthy appearance, the nice clothes Hudson had insisted on buying me as part of my professional wardrobe. Well, he said. "You look good, Iris. Better than I expected. This arrangement clearly suits you." "What do you want?" I repeated, my voice like ice. "I want to see my children," he said. I laughed. It was a harsh, ugly sound. "Your children? You don't have children, Donovan. You sold them for $45,000 and a one-way ticket to Cyprus." His smile faltered just for a second. "So you figured that out." I'm impressed. Hudson's a better detective than I gave him credit for. "And a better man," I snapped. "Ah, yes, Hudson," Donovan said, leaning against the porch railing. "My wife shacking up with my old boss. How convenient. How did that happen anyway? Did you just fall into his bed? Or did you have to beg him, like you were begging your sister for grocery money?" My hand flew up and I slapped him, hard. The sound cracked in the quiet afternoon air. He touched his cheek, his eyes turning cold. "You'll regret that." "Get off this property," I hissed. "You are not welcome here, and you will never, ever see Eliza and Elias again." "Oh, I think I will," he said, his voice dangerously soft. "You see, I've been doing some thinking, and I want reconciliation." "Reconciliation?" I stared at him. "Are you insane? You stole $30,000. You sold our house. You staged a crime scene to throw us off. You broke into this house and stole our only evidence." "Allegedly," he smirked. "You can't prove any of that. The ledger is gone. The laptop is at the bottom of the river. And the money? It's clean." "My word against yours, Iris. And who do you think they'll believe? The successful, grieving husband who had to make difficult financial choices? Or the unstable single mother who's living with her wealthy boss? You're going to lie?" "I'm going to tell my story," he said. And my story is very compelling, which is why I'm here. I'm willing to make this all go away for a price. Get to the point, Donovan. I don't really want reconciliation, he admitted, dropping the pretense. And you're right. The kids, they're a responsibility I'm just not interested in. I felt sick. But, he continued, I am their father, and I have parental rights, and I've been getting my life together. I have a stable income, a nice place. I can provide for them. You're going to fight me for custody? I whispered, the world tilting again. Oh, I'm not just going to fight you, Iris. I'm going to win, he said. What kind of environment is this for them? Living in your boss's backyard, dependent on his charity? A judge will eat that up. They'll see you as an unfit mother, well, let's just say a kept woman, and they will give them to me. You monster, I stammered. You don't want them. Of course I don't, he snapped. But I know someone who does. You, and more importantly, Hudson. He seems very attached to you, to my children. He's playing house, and he's rich. Rich enough to make sure this little custody problem just disappears. The pieces clicked into place, the sheer diabolical cruelty of his plan. You're blackmailing him, I said. I'm negotiating, he corrected me. I am willing to sign away my parental rights, completely, terminate them, disappear forever. You'll never see me again. Eliza and Elias will be safe with you and, Daddy, all it will cost him is $200,000. I stared at him, my mind reeling. $200,000. It's a bargain, really, he smiled, for his instant family. He gets a wife, 2 kids, all legal, no messy ex-husband, all for the low price of $200,000. And if he says no, then I file for custody, Donovan said, his eyes hardening. And I'll drag you both through the mud. I'll tell the courts about your arrangement. I'll paint him as a predator. I'll paint you as a whore. And I will take those children, Iris. And then, maybe I'll sell them back to him for $300,000. Think about it. He pulled a business card from his pocket. It was just a phone number. You have 48 hours to give me an answer. Tell Hudson. I look forward to his call. He turned and walked back to his car, whistling. I stood on the porch, shaking with a rage so profound I thought I might be sick. He wasn't just a thief, he was evil. He was using his own children as hostages. And the worst part? His plan just might work. Hudson returned from Pittsburgh late that night. I was sitting on the guest house porch, wrapped in a blanket, unable to sleep. He saw my face in the dim light and knew instantly. What is it? What happened? I told him. Everything. The custody threat, the $200,000 demand, the 48-hour deadline. He listened in silence, his jaw getting tighter and tighter, until I thought his teeth might crack. When I finished, he didn't say anything for a full minute. He just stared out into the darkness. That's his price, I whispered, to sell his own children. He's run out of money, Hudson said, his voice a low growl. Daniel checked the Cypriot accounts again. They're empty. He burned through all of it. The $30,000 from you, the $45,000 from the house, and the $75,000 he stole from me. 75? I looked at him shocked. You told me. You said it was just a small amount. I lied, Hudson said, turning to me. I didn't want to scare you. It was $75,000, Iris. He embezzled $75,000 from my clients, and he gambled it all away. He's broke, and he's desperate. This extortion plot, this is his last move. So we pay him? I asked, hating the words. We just give him the money? No, Hudson said. We don't pay him. We don't negotiate with terrorists, especially not ones who use their own children as leverage. But Hudson, he'll file for custody. He'll say those things about me, about us. What if a judge believes him? He might. Hudson said quietly, which is why we can't let it get to a courtroom. Not his courtroom anyway. We're going to set our own. What do you mean? I mean, Hudson said, we're going to agree to his meeting. We're going to let him think he's won. We're going to get him in a room, and we're going to get him to say everything on tape. The plan was audacious. It was dangerous. The ledger, the break-in. He knows we'll do anything to get proof. He'll be suspicious. He won't be, Hudson said, because he's arrogant. He thinks he's the smartest man in the room. He thinks he's beaten us. He thinks we're scared. And he's desperate for the money. He'll come. And what if he doesn't say enough? He will, Hudson said, a cold smile touching his lips. Men like Donovan can't help but brag. We just have to give him the stage. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling Daniel. We're setting this up, tonight. He paused, his thumb over the screen. He looked at me, his expression softening. Iris, there's something else. Something I should have told you a long time ago. The truth. The truth about what? I asked, my nerves already frayed. About my ex-wife, he said, not looking at me. The story I told you. About her running off with her yoga instructor, cleaning out our accounts. It was a lie. I stared at him. A lie? Why? Why would you lie about that? He finally met my gaze, and his eyes were filled with a pain so deep it shocked me. Because the truth was too complicated, too painful, and I was ashamed. He took a deep breath. My wife, Sophia, she didn't leave me. She died. 3 years ago. Cancer. The words hung in the night air. Oh, Hudson, I'm so sorry. She was sick for 2 years, he continued, his voice thick. I did what I do. I tried to fix it. I threw money at it. Specialists, experimental treatments, trips to clinics. I was so focused on winning that I didn't see what was happening to my family. What do you mean? My daughter, he said, his voice cracking. Matilda, she was 17. She was terrified. She was watching her mother die, and she needed her father. And I wasn't there. I was in meetings with doctors. I was on the phone with researchers. I was trying to save Sophia, and I failed. And I lost Matilda, too. What happened? The night Sophia died, Matilda looked at me in that cold hospital room, and she said, "You couldn't save her, and you can't save me. I hate you." She moved in with her aunt, Sophia's sister, the next day. She hasn't spoken to me since. She returns my letters, my gifts. It's been 3 years. He was crying. This powerful, imposing man was sitting on the porch, weeping silently. I reached out instinctively and put my hand on his arm. "Hudson, that's not your fault." "When I saw you," he said, "that night you sent that text, so desperate, so strong, fighting so hard for your children. It reminded me of everything I failed to do. I thought, if I could help you, if I could save your family, maybe it would be some kind of redemption for failing mine." I processed his words. "So helping me, it was about your daughter?" "At first," he said, wiping his face, his voice rough. "At first, yes, it was a project, a way to fix my own guilt." He turned to me, and his hand covered mine on his arm. His grip was strong. "It's not about that anymore, Iris. Not for a long time. This helping you, it stopped being about my past. It started being about my future, about our future." My heart hammered in my chest. "Hudson, I'm in love with you, Iris," he said, his voice raw and certain. "I'm in love with your strength and your courage and your heart. And I'm in love with Eliza and Elias. I want this. I want us, but I can't. I won't build a life with you with his shadow hanging over us." You love me? I whispered, the words sounding unreal. More than I thought I could love anyone, he said, which is why we have to do this. We have to end this. We have to destroy him, Iris, so we can be free. I looked at this man, this broken, powerful, and gentle man. He had seen the worst of me, my desperation, my poverty, my fear, and he hadn't run. He had stayed. Okay, I said, my voice shaking. Let's do it. Let's set the trap. Are you sure? I'm sure, I said, my voice growing stronger. He is not taking my children. He is not destroying another family. Not this one. Hudson's face hardened, the grief replaced by cold determination. He squeezed my hand. Good. I'm calling Daniel, and then I'm calling Donovan. I'm going to tell him his offer is acceptable. The meeting was set for the following night, 8 p.m. Hudson's office, 30th floor. The next 24 hours were the longest of my life. Daniel Chung arrived with a team. They swept the office for bugs, then installed their own. A tiny high-definition camera in a bookshelf, a broadcast-quality microphone array hidden in the ceiling. Hudson would also wear a wire as a backup. The DA's office is intrigued, Daniel said, but they won't move without a confession. The break-in at your house, the stolen ledger, it's all circumstantial. This recording, this has to be it. You have to get him to admit to the embezzlement, the wire fraud, and especially the extortion. You have to get him to say, on tape, that he's selling his children. He will, Hudson said. I was a wreck. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sit still. What if he saw the wire? What if he changed his mind? What if he just grabbed the money and ran? He won't, Hudson assured me, holding my trembling hands. He's coming for a payout, but also for a victory lap. He wants to see us squirm. He wants to brag about how he beat us. We just have to let him. That night, I sat in a chair in the corner of Hudson's office. Daniel was in the adjoining conference room with 2 police detectives, listening to the live feed. My heart felt like it was going to beat its way out of my chest. At 8:01 p.m., the elevator dinged. Donovan walked in. He was beaming. He was wearing an absurdly expensive-looking suit, and he was carrying a leather briefcase. Hudson, he said, shaking Hudson's hand like they were old friends. Good to see you again. Iris. He barely glanced at me, a dismissive flick of his eyes. Donovan, Hudson said, his voice perfectly calm. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. Please, sit. Business then, Donovan said, sitting and clicking open his briefcase. He pulled out a stack of legal documents. Full termination of parental rights. I've already signed my part. All they need is your signature, Iris. And, of course, the transfer. He slid a piece of paper across the desk. It had a Swiss bank account number on it. Before we proceed, Hudson said, leaning back in his chair, I want to be absolutely clear on what we're agreeing to here. This is a significant sum. It's a significant solution, Donovan said, smirking. $200,000, Hudson said, transferred to this account, and in exchange, you, what, disappear? I vanish, Donovan confirmed. You'll never hear from me again. I give up all rights to Eliza and Elias. They're all yours, your problem, your instant family. I dug my nails into my palms, forcing myself to stay silent. I have to ask, Donovan, Hudson said, steepling his fingers. Don't you feel anything? For them? They're your children. Donovan actually laughed. It was a short, sharp, ugly sound. Look, Hudson, I'll be honest with you, man to man, I never wanted kids. Never. Iris, she forgot her birth control. You know how it is. I did the right thing. I married her, and it ruined my life. Ruined it, Hudson prompted. The expense, Donovan said, leaning forward, warming to his subject. The noise. The constant need. I couldn't travel. I couldn't take risks. I couldn't live. Every penny went to diapers and formula. And Iris, God, she was no help. Always tired, always stressed, always putting the kids first. She forgot how to be a wife. So, that's why you started taking money, Hudson said, from the house. From her. I wasn't taking it, Donovan scoffed. I was reallocating it. I was moving our assets into investments. Investments she was too stupid and too scared to make. The house, that $45,000, that was my money. I earned it. And the money you reallocated from my company, Hudson asked, his voice casual. The $75,000 you embezzled. Donovan's smirk faltered. That was a misunderstanding about expense accounts. Was it? Hudson said. He pulled a single sheet of paper from his desk. Because my bank, they traced it. From my client accounts to your holding account to the hedge initiative account in Cyprus, the same account you used to hide Iris's money. Donovan licked his lips. You can't prove that. Oh, but I can, Hudson said. And you know I can, because you broke into my house and stole the ledger. That was very smart, by the way. Very thorough. Donovan's confidence returned. He smiled. I am thorough. You were sloppy. Leaving a thing like that on a laptop? Tisk. But it's gone now, so it's your word against mine, and my word is about to be $200,000 richer. So, what will you do with it? Hudson asked. Back to Cyprus? Back to the casinos? Maybe, Donovan shrugged. A man's got to have hobbies, and I was on a bad streak. This will clear my debts and set me up fresh. My God, he was admitting to everything. The theft, the embezzlement, the gambling, the break-in. One last question, Hudson said. Iris, the kids. What did you think was going to happen to them? When you left, you took every penny. You sold their house. Donovan leaned back, lacing his fingers behind his head. He looked at me, his eyes full of contempt. Honestly, I figured she'd give up. She's not strong like me. I figured she'd eventually put the kids up for adoption, hand them over to the state. It would have saved everyone a lot of trouble. Frankly, I'm disappointed she didn't. He said it. He would have let his children go into the foster care system. You're a monster, I whispered, my voice shaking. I'm a survivor, he snapped. And you're a parasite. You latched onto me, and now you've latched onto him. It's pathetic. I think we have everything we need, Hudson said, his voice cold as death. He looked past Donovan toward the conference room door. Thank you for your honesty, Donovan. My honesty? Donovan looked confused. Just transfer the money, Blackwood. My time is valuable. Oh, I'm not transferring anything, Hudson said. He pressed a button on his desk phone. Daniel, I think we're done here. The conference room door flew open. Daniel Chung walked in, followed by the two detectives. One of them was holding a set of handcuffs. Donovan's face went white. He jumped to his feet, knocking over his chair. What is this? What's going on? Donovan Morrison, the lead detective said, his voice booming in the office. You're under arrest for embezzlement, wire fraud, extortion, and child abandonment. You can't, Donovan shrieked, his eyes wild. We had an agreement. You're trapping me. We had a conversation, Hudson said, standing up. A very thorough conversation. One that has been recorded in high-definition video and audio with the full awareness of the district attorney's office. You, Donovan lunged, not at Hudson, but at me. You bitch, you did this. Before he could take 2 steps, the second detective tackled him, slamming him face first into the plush carpet. They cuffed his hands behind his back with a sharp, metallic click. This isn't over, Iris, he screamed, his face red, spittle flying from his mouth. I'll get a lawyer. I'll fight this. You'll never be rid of me. With what money, Donovan? Daniel Chung asked, stepping forward. He held up a new set of papers. While you were negotiating, our federal partners, acting on the proof from that recording, officially froze your Swiss account, and the Cypriot authorities have seized the balance of your other accounts. You're broke. And, Daniel continued, in light of your recorded statements tonight, specifically your stated desire to sell your children and your admission that you hoped they'd end up in foster care, the state of New York is filing an emergency motion to terminate your parental rights. Permanently. You'll have no legal claim to Eliza and Elias ever again, I said, my voice shaking, but strong. It's over, Donovan. You lose. They hauled him to his feet. He was a wreck. His expensive suit was torn. The smugness was gone, replaced by a raw, pathetic terror. As they dragged him out of the office, he just kept repeating, "No, no, no." The door closed. The office was silent. I stood there for a second, and then my legs gave out. I collapsed into the chair. It was over. It was really over. Hudson was by my side in an instant, kneeling, his arms around me. "It's over, Iris. He's gone. He can't hurt you anymore." I buried my face in his shoulder and I cried, not tears of fear or sadness, but of release. The weight of the last year, it lifted. What happens now? I asked, my voice muffled. Now, Daniel said, gathering up his papers, Donovan goes to jail for a very long time, and you and the twins, you get to start your real life. Free. He smiled. And the court will process the termination of rights by the end of the week. After that, if Mr. Blackwood wants to formally adopt the children, the process should be remarkably straightforward. I pulled back, looking at Hudson. Adoption. We hadn't talked about that. Would you want that? I asked, my voice small. To adopt them? Legally? Only if you want it, Iris, he said, his eyes searching mine. Only if you think we can be a real family. Before I could answer, before I could process the hope that was flooding my heart, Hudson's personal cell phone, the one he'd left on his desk, began to ring. He glanced at the screen, all the color drained from his face. Hudson, what is it? Who is it? He stared at the phone, his hand shaking. It's Matilda, he whispered. It's my daughter. Answer it, I urged. Hudson, answer the phone. He fumbled for it, his hands shaking. He pressed the accept button. Matilda, Maddie, is that you? He was silent, listening. His face. It was a mask of shock and confusion and dawning hope. I could hear a faint sobbing voice on the other end. Slow down, sweetheart, he said, his voice thick. Slow down, what's wrong? Where are you? He listened for another long moment. The airport? You're here? In New York? He sank into his desk chair, his eyes wide. Yes, of course I'll come. Don't move. I'll be there. I'll be right there. We'll figure it out. Together. He hung up the phone. He looked at me, his eyes brimming with tears. She's at the airport. JFK. She had a fight with her aunt. A huge one. She packed a bag and she bought a ticket. She wants to come home. Oh, Hudson, I said, my own tears starting. That's wonderful. There's more, he said, his voice choking. She said she's been reading my letters, the ones I've been sending every week. She kept them all. She never opened them until last month. What did they say? I told her about you, he said, looking at me. I told her about Eliza and Elias. I told her. I told her I'd met someone who was teaching me how to be a father again, how to be happy. He stood up, grabbing his keys. She said she saw the pictures I'd sent of us in the backyard, of me pushing Eliza on the swing. She said she realized she wanted to be happy too, and that she was sorry. She wants to come home. Then let's go, I said, grabbing my purse. Let's go get your daughter. The drive to the airport was a blur of traffic and flashing lights. Hudson gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white. He was silent, but it was a loud silence, filled with 3 years of pain and hope. We found her waiting by the baggage claim. She was a tall, striking young woman with Hudson's sharp eyes and a cascade of dark hair I recognized from the photos in his office. She was clutching a single worn backpack. When she saw Hudson, her face crumpled. "Daddy?" she whispered. "Maddie," he breathed. She ran to him. She didn't walk. She ran. She threw her arms around his neck, burying her face in his chest, and she sobbed. "I'm sorry, Daddy. I'm so sorry. I didn't know what to do. I missed you." "I've got you," Hudson said, holding her so tight I thought he might crack her ribs. "I've got you, sweetheart. You're home. You're home." They just held each other. In the middle of the crowded airport, two broken people finally finding their way back together. After a long time, she pulled back, wiping her eyes, and she looked at me. Her gaze was curious, but not unkind. You must be Iris," she said, her voice small. "I am," I said, smiling. It's so good to finally meet you, Matilda." He's told me a lot about you. In his letters," she said. He said you saved him." I think," I said, looking at Hudson, "I think we kind of saved each other." Matilda smiled. A real, watery smile. "Yeah," she said. That's what he wrote." 6 months later, I stood in that same backyard under a canopy of white flowers. Hudson stood across from me, his eyes shining. He was in a black tuxedo, and I was in a simple, elegant white dress. "And do you, Iris, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" I looked past him, at the small crowd, at Daniel Chung clapping his wife on the shoulder, at Mrs. Davis, the daycare owner, who was wiping her eyes, at my sister Rebecca, who was holding a glass of champagne and smiling a real, genuine smile of happiness for me. And I looked at our children. Eliza and Elias, now officially adopted by Hudson, were our flower girl and ring bearer. They were toddling around in matching miniature outfits, giggling as they threw flower petals, and next to them, holding both their hands, was Matilda. She was my maid of honor. She winked at me, her eyes sparkling. "I do," I said, my voice clear and strong. "I do, 1,000 times. And do you, Hudson?" "I do," he said, not even letting the officiant finish. He laughed, and the crowd laughed with him. "God, yes, I do." That night, after the party had wound down, Hudson and I sat on the back porch. We watched Matilda push Eliza and Elias on the swing set Hudson had built for them. Their laughter carried on the cool night air. "What are you thinking about?" Hudson asked, his arm wrapped tightly around my waist. "I'm thinking," I said, leaning my head on his shoulder, "about that text message." "The one for $40? He smiled. "The one for $40, I confirmed. I thought that's what I needed. I thought that would save me. I had no idea." "No idea about what?" That sometimes you send out a desperate message for help, and you don't just get groceries. I looked at him, my heart so full I thought it might burst. Sometimes you get everything. You get a family. You get a partner. You get a love you didn't even know you were allowed to look for. "I'm the lucky one, Iris," he whispered, kissing my temple. You and Maddie, and those two little monsters. You didn't just give me a family, you gave me my life back." As the sun set, I watched my children, our children, play, safe, loved, and whole. Donovan was a distant memory, a ghost. He was serving a 7-year sentence for fraud and embezzlement, his appeals exhausted. He was irrelevant. I had been so sure that that 3 a.m. text had been the worst mistake of my life, but I was wrong. It was the best, most perfect, most life-altering wrong number I had ever dialed. It was the message that had, against all odds, led me home. Hudson's sedan sliced through the late-night traffic, the silence in the car thick with tension and hope. He was a focused, powerful man, but tonight he was trembling, his hands gripping the wheel. I reached over and placed my hand on his arm. "She's coming home, Hudson," I said gently. "That's what matters." "She hasn't spoken to me in 3 years, Iris," he whispered, his voice raw. "Not a word. What if she changes her mind? What if she sees me and runs?" "She called you. She asked for you. She read your letters. She saw what you were building," I insisted. "Matilda isn't running. She's searching." We pulled up to the arrivals curb at JFK. The terminal was busy even at this hour. Hudson parked illegally, not caring about the traffic wardens. He was already out of the car and scanning the crowd. "Matilda!" he called out. She was standing near the baggage claim, a solitary figure with a worn leather backpack slung over her shoulder. She looked smaller, younger than the photos in his office. When she saw him, she didn't hesitate. She ran. Hudson met her halfway, wrapping his arms around her tightly. The sound of her sobbing, muffled against his chest, was heartbreaking. "I'm sorry, Daddy," she choked out. "I'm so sorry. I've been so awful." "No, sweetheart, never awful," Hudson said, his own voice breaking. He held her face in his hands, staring at her, drinking her in. "I should have been better. I should have been here." "I read them," she confessed, sniffing. "Your letters, every single one. I saw the picture of you and the twins. In the backyard. You looked happy, really happy. And I realized I wanted to be part of that." She looked up, her tear-filled eyes finding mine. "You must be Iris," she repeated, offering me a shy smile. "Thank you for helping him." "Thank you for coming home, Matilda," I replied, stepping closer. The air between us was tentative, but warm. This wasn't an enemy. This was family, finally reconnecting. Back at the estate, we settled Matilda into a newly made-up guest room. She insisted on coming to the guest house, wanting to see where we lived. Eliza and Elias were fast asleep, oblivious to the drama. We sat in the small living room, eating stale cookies I had managed to dig up. Matilda looked exhausted, but settled. "Why now, Maddie?" Hudson asked softly. "Aunt Carol, she's lovely, but she's just tired of me," Matilda admitted. "She wants me to go to college, but I don't know what I want. We had a huge fight. I realized I was just stuck, blaming you, blaming everything. I found your last letter and you wrote about Iris, about how strong she was, and how she never gave up. You said she made you believe in second chances." She turned to me. "And then I saw your photo. You, a single mom fighting for her kids, and Dad, he was fighting for you. It made me realize that maybe he wasn't the same man who couldn't save Mom. Maybe he was fighting to be better." I looked at Hudson. He was watching his daughter, the love and relief radiating from him almost palpable. "I want to be here, Dad. I want to meet my little brother and sister. I want to be part of this family if you'll have me." "Of course we'll have you, sweetheart," Hudson said, pulling her into a fierce side hug. I felt a surge of warmth. In the span of a single night, Donovan's destructive plot had collapsed, and in its ashes, a new, complete family was rising. Justice was served in the courtroom, but healing was happening right here, on my tiny guest house sofa. The next morning, the guest house was chaos. Matilda, curious about her new siblings, had woken up early. I found her on the floor laughing as Eliza tried to climb her leg and Elias attempted to feed her a block. Hudson came in holding 2 coffees and a stack of papers. "Morning, family." "I'm teaching Elias the alphabet," Matilda announced proudly. "He seems to like the letter B best." Hudson smiled, placing the papers on the counter. "Those are from Daniel Chung. The official termination of Donovan's parental rights came through this morning. The recording was airtight." I looked at the documents. It was final. Donovan Morrison was no longer a legal father to Eliza and Elias. "It's done," I breathed, the finality sinking in. Hudson knelt down, looking into my eyes. "Now, Iris, the question is, what is our future?" "Daniel says the adoption process can begin immediately. We can start the paperwork this afternoon." I looked at the 3 children on the floor, the twins who were safe, and the heartbroken teenager who was finally home. I looked at Hudson, who had been my employer, my savior, my investigator, and now my partner. "I want them to have your name, Hudson," I said, tears blurring my vision. "I want them to know what a real father is, and I want us to be a family, a real one." Hudson smiled, a deep, genuine smile that reached his eyes. "Good, because I already bought the rings." The next few months were a whirlwind of activity. I continued to manage Hudson's properties, excelling in my role. The pay allowed me to start building my own substantial savings account, a new financial fortress that no Donovan could ever breach. Matilda enrolled in a community college program and surprisingly became an incredible help with the twins. She embraced her role as the big sister, reading them stories and playing games, making up for the lost years of her own childhood. She was healing, and watching her reconnect with her father was the greatest gift I could have given him. Hudson and I were married 6 months later. We kept it small, opting for a private ceremony in the backyard of the main house, which was now simply our house. The guest list was tight. Daniel Chung and his family, my sister Rebecca, who apologized tearfully for her past judgment, and Mrs. Davis from the daycare, who cried the entire time. Eliza and Elias, now officially Blackwoods, toddled down the aisle, scattering rose petals in their matching miniature suits. Matilda, radiant in a sapphire dress, stood by my side. When it came time for the vows, Hudson didn't talk about wealth or success. He spoke about wrong numbers and second chances. "Iris," he said, looking at me with absolute certainty, "you asked for $40 and you didn't just get groceries. You gave me back my heart. You gave me back my daughter. You gave me 2 beautiful children and the chance to finally, truly be a father. You taught me that you don't need money to be rich. You just need courage." I repeated my vows, my voice trembling with emotion. This wasn't a marriage of convenience or rescue. This was the merging of 2 fiercely determined people who had both suffered profound betrayal and found their way back to hope. As we stood there, surrounded by our chosen family, I looked at the 3 children laughing together. The shadow of Donovan Morrison was gone. He was still in prison, serving a lengthy sentence, his appeals denied, and his reputation ruined by his own recorded words. He was the past. We were the future. That evening, as the sun set over the backyard where our children played, Hudson wrapped his arm around me. "What are you thinking about, Mrs. Blackwood?" he murmured. "I'm thinking," I said, leaning into his warmth, "that every tear, every 18-hour shift, every moment of desperation, it was all worth it, because I accidentally dialed the wrong number and got the right life." I looked up at him. "Especially then," I smiled. "Especially then." If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from, or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here,